Hello and welcome to the Sub1 YouTube channel. My name is Ray, and in this video, part 13 of the R2D2 build, I'm working on ring 4 here. So in a previous video I did weld up sections and screw the rest together, and I then sat that on top of the R2D2 body. So since then I've dropped a couple of square nuts into holes here and just put in some screws ready. This is actually for the interface arm, and on this side, which I've done the same again, is for a small gripper. So that'll be able to be bolted into there and operated. I've also added in, following on from last week's video, the hinge here and the one over here. So this is on top of what they call the bread pans, and these pieces here just slot in the top to cover the top of the bread pans. Nice and simple. Once the leg supports go in here, or the hub supports, that actually locks these two pieces in, and that's all we need to worry about with those. Up until they're in, you can actually open that up to gain access through the top if you need to. Now on the front here we have the utility arms slide into here. Bread pan cover fell out again, and these are the utility arms. Now they print as two pieces. They go together, and you put square nuts in this side, screws in from this side, and screw them together. I then followed up by plastic welding down through the middle, along the end there, and along the top. After cleaning up from the plastic welding, I then gave it some undercoat and some nice blue paint, and I did that for both of the interface arms. Now there are some plugs that can be printed that fill in these holes, and I did print them, but they were a little bit sloppy in there, so I'll probably just use filler or 3D pen to fill those holes in at a later date. But I'm not all that panicked about those holes. For the most part, they're not visible unless the arms are out. Now on this end you'll see it's actually got gearing, and that's so that it can mesh with a gear for a servo. And in here, and same on the other side, we have provision for bearings. Now the bearings used in this case are 606 EZs, although you can use 606 RS if you like, and they just push in like so, very easy. And then we put them in from this side, to get it reasonably center. Now there's two parts here that I've got printed out. I may yet reprint these because they didn't come out very well. I had a fair bit of under extrusion while they were printing, but they're not visible under normal circumstances. You've literally got to pull the robot down to get to them. And this piece here with the bigger top slots in from the top here and holds that in. For the other interface arm, it's exactly the same files. Again, bearing, and that pushes in from the front. But I'm going to flip this over. And on the bottom here there is a hole, and if you get this lined up just right, we can use this pin. It's actually on the head of the pin here. It's actually tapered, and that suits the taper on the bottom, and that pushes in. You can, when this is on top of ring 3, you can access it from the charge port. open up the little door and it comes down from the top. Alright, so our next trick will be to get the servo tester out. And some batteries. Now these gears on the top here, this is there's two versions of this. One of them looks similar to this and it's supposed to go onto a servo horn, but I can't find a matching servo horn to suit these, so I'm using these. One side is tapered and the other side has a hole provision for the hole to go in, for the screw to go through. The taper side you put onto the metal servo horn and then you tighten this down and the teeth in the servo output shaft will bite into that tapered section and you do up the screw nice and tight and that stops it from rotating. Or at least that's what I found. It was the only way I could figure out to get it to work. Now, one servo mounts upside down like so, and the other servo mounts up the right way like so, and the gears on the servos mesh with the arms. So if I hold that, that screw's not tight enough. Still not tight enough. I need a bigger screwdriver. That's better. So if I rotate this round a little bit, as I hold that in place, you can see it opens and closes. Alright, so I'm happy with that positioning, so I'm going to lock that servo in with a couple of screws, if I can open the bag. Now there's only provision in here for 2 screws on each servo. And that's on the outer servo mount points. That seems to be working quite nicely. Okay, so I'll lock that one in where it is there with a couple of screws. Might to do a little bit of adjustment on that at a later date. One thing about this, see, when you're driving these from an Arduino, you can go between 500 microseconds and 2500 microseconds, and this servo tester only goes between 800 and 2200. So I can get a bit more out of it when I'm working with the Arduino, which we'll probably be doing when we do the electronics. Now, I have actually done a test assembly of these parts, and I know they fit in there. There are 2 servos that we need to be aware of on these ones, so a total of 6 servos from this ring. And that comes back to thinking about the wiring of all of the parts that are going to be on this body. So I'm actually going to do the servos as one loom, all of the lights and sound as another loom, running similar. That way we don't get interference with our light communication from the servos with their PWM signals and noisy motor. For that, in previous projects I've been working on, the giant size servos, when I bought them, came with these Y pieces, and the idea was on very large model aircraft, if you've got two giant size servos, one usually in the left, one in the right. This is a splitter, so you can drive them both at the same time, usually for the ailerons and the like. But these connections here are very good for connecting servos into, because they do work very well. Usually they fit in quite easily, work with most servos because it was designed for servos. So I'm actually going to cut those off at this Y piece and start making a loom, and I will use the red and the black wires. I will tie all together all the way around on my loom, and then run a separate wire back for each of the PWM lines, which is the yellow wire on this one. So I will need to have one for the bread pad door. I'll need another 2 for the device that fits in here. I think this is a data arm. I'll also allow one extra for potentially doing the charge port door. Currently it's manual, but there is an upgrade that you can make that automated. I will also need to have 2 for this side, for this, the gripper. I will need to have a pair for the 2 utility arms, and I'll need a pair, one for the bread pan door opening and close, and one for the data port door open and close. So I've got enough of these that I can do all of these servos if I and make it all look good. So I will probably build up most of the loom in another video, or maybe off camera even, and then show it before I install it. I'll put this back onto the body of the robot of R2D2. I have installed that previously, and once that's on, I can then slot in these 2 pieces, and that means I can put the hubs back on. Once I've got the hubs on, I can then put this up onto his legs, and I'll look at installing the center wheel as well. So I'll do that in the next video. Once I've got this on, I'll also put on the top ring here. Now the top ring, and I will grab it, has this piece printed out. This ring's upside down at the moment, and they call it a data slot or something along those lines, and that just sits on top. That has to be off in order to gain access to that pin. But once this is on, we'll make sure we've got the square nuts in the 6 holes before we drop this on, and that gives us the mounting points for the Lazy Susan. It'll go on top of that when we're ready. To see when all that comes out, don't forget to click on like, subscribe, ring that notification bell. It's also a form of support that helps the channel a great deal and costs you absolutely nothing. If you'd like to support the channel further, I do have a Patreon account and YouTube membership, and you can join my VIP patrons GoLucky, Coburnicus and Jerde. My builder patrons Elmorales45, Andrew Cardone, Airgar69, James Kelly, in helping to support the channel. All my patrons and YouTube members get these videos a week earlier than they are released on YouTube to the public. If you've got any questions, feel free to leave a comment below or drop into the Discord. There will be a link in the description, and if I can't answer your question, someone else might be able to. And we'll see you in the next video.